Welcome back. Now, maths is one of the subjects causing matrics the most stress, particularly at this time with prelims just around the corner. Join me now to allay fears and give some tips to matrics and teachers. I'm joined by George Eadie, the CEO of the Answer Series. George, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Now, prelims kick-started this past week, and we know that these are a crucial build-up to the matric finals. The content often covered spans through grades 10, 11 and 12 work. Now, this particular cohort of matrics were in grade 10 during the height of COVID, where interrupted learning took place. Do we anticipate the aftermath of COVID-19 to hit hard in the class of 2022?
The real truth, of course, Kadlejo, and thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, is that we will only know the answer to that question with the outcome of this round of exams. But for subjects like mathematics, where the learners will be tested on grade 10, 11 and 12 material, all three of those years in some measure interrupted by COVID, it's really going to be a big test of the schooling system, of learners themselves, to have got through this time. So we are anticipating a rough exam period. But we, as South Africans, know that we have resilience. So I'm also a little bit optimistic that a lot of learners will have discovered methods of really tackling this with themselves and their peers and any means at their disposal.
And talking about resilience, to be fully prepared during these examinations, learners may need to be healthy and mentally prepared in order to tackle them. What role can parents play in alleviating stress during this time?
Well, I am a parent of young kids, so I suppose giving tips to parents I always give cautiously, knowing how hard a job it is. But with that being said, I would really like to suggest focusing on two things. The one is the learning environment, and that can be as best as possible sort of conducive for study. I know in the vast majority of situations in South Africa, we have a lot of shared space, shared rooms, that kind of thing. This is a time to really have conversations about being able to set aside what are the expectations for where, as a learner, I can, for instance, expect to fulfill on my study timetable. And so anything that can set up routine and less unknowns for a learner in that space, I think can make a huge contribution as a parent. I know those sound perhaps like quite logistical concerns, but I think they add up a lot, and in the act of doing so express quite a lot of love and support towards your child. So that's something I would really, and then obviously the thing that you can give to young people as old people is always that sense of, yes, it's important, but this will not be the beginning and the end of your life. And so remain calm. That is going to be how you're going to produce your best results in any case.
And of course, we are speaking to the class of matrics of this year, but looking back at other grades that are going to be in matric next year and the year after, it's very important that we start these practices beforehand and not just in your matric year.
Absolutely correct. Exam fitness or exam strategy is a whole nother territory other than just covering the material in the classroom at a concept level. And so one of the things, and perhaps one of the reasons why I'm on the call today, is that the Answer Series, we've placed a huge emphasis on providing content for practice and, being able to apply the concept knowledge in an exam situation. So you're quite correct. And subjects like mathematics lend themselves much more to that thing where, there should never go a week where you don't do some kind of mathematics to just keep that process fresh. And the best time to start is often yesterday.
Now, speaking about access to additional material, how important is it that kids or parents try to equip themselves with material that's beyond the classroom? I mean, you spoke of the Answer Series. What content do you provide for students? Is it free, and where do they find it?
Yes, sure. So in South Africa, we have a one textbook per subject per child policy, for those of you who are not familiar with that. And so many learners have access to their textbooks. The problem with textbooks is that the last time the textbooks were updated in our country was almost 10 years ago. And so So that's placed quite a significant burden on teachers to provide content to learners and for learners and parents to head out and try to find what are the best resources. And look, I definitely am biased, I have to say. But, you know, what we strongly recommend up front, I want to say, is really just stay off social media as the idea of a resource. It can be an incredible distraction. It's never going to be comprehensive, and you might strike it lucky with the odd piece of support here or there. But my advice would be it's really time to be strategic, pick resources you can rely on, and then, you know, switch off all the distractions that go from there. And, you know, too many resources can be overwhelming. Resources that are not comprehensive to the curriculum can be overwhelming. Unfortunately, the answer series doesn't provide free material, but for the value that you get, if you were to invest in a study guide, you get a complete, comprehensive, end-to-end body of tried and tested support that when you make that one decision, you can then settle in and just put your head down and get through, knowing that you've got the resource that is going to best support you, not leaving you to be wondering about whether you've got the wrong or the right thing. So, you know, that's the balancing act of finding the right resources.
Lastly, George, what are the vital tips that you would have for matrics writing prelims, especially for those that will be tackling their mathematics papers?
The most vital tip that I would offer is have a study timetable. When we're stressed, it can feel like the right thing to do to sit down and just start somewhere in our studying. And often that might alleviate an initial level of nervousness and anxiety. But when we are able to sit down once and for all and plan all the days leading up from now until our final exams, knowing what parts of our exam preparation we are going to execute on what days, it can really give one a great sense of calm. There are two things we have to be. We have to be the boss of our study schedule, and we have to be the person who does the studying. And I think having a plan and then executing on the plan will really give one, as a learner, that greatest sense of calm in the run-up. And then when it comes to mathematics particularly, it needs to occupy a very special little place in preparation, which is that try to do one mathematics problem or challenge every single day, so that it never becomes something strange. It's such an important subject, and I think it warrants a little bit of attention. So if you can elevate yourself from being a learner to being a learner with a plan, you'll be a much more formidable force.
All right, thank you for your time, George. That's George Eadie from the Answer Series. He's the CEO there, giving us some tips on how to tackle the matric prelims. Thank you so much for your time.